Welcome into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. I'm excited to have our guest on today. Of course, we're delving into the world of Bigfoot, but this isn't just your average Bigfoot. We're talking Quantum Bigfoot today, and we're talking about some interesting audio recordings, and we're talking about an interesting area. We're talking about the Sierra Sounds, and we're talking about some strange phenomena that occurred at the Sierra camp. And our guest today is Ron Morehead. And Ron has had some, we're going to jump into it here, and I'm going to let him explain a lot about it because there's just so much ground to cover today. And we're going to talk about the vocalizations of Bigfoot, why these sounds are not only unique, but have been verified and how they've been verified and how you can't. I know a lot of people like to kind of discount. I'm going to use adult words here, discount and try to debunk Bigfoot sounds and Bigfoot evidence. These can't be denied, folks. These Bigfoot sounds have been brought to scientists and voice specialists and other, and I'll let Ron get into it as well as to who these have been brought to, that have been torn apart. His evidence has been torn apart left and right, and he's been told that by independent sources that yes, what he has here is genuine, that this is Bigfoot or Sasquatch. We're going to play one or two samples as well to show you what it is that he has. The stuff that he has available online is astounding. That's the only way I can put it, and well worth it to check out. Let's get into it, shall we? Ron Morehead has traveled the world doing research on the unexplained, undiscovered, and underexplored. He is recognized around the globe for the best Bigfoot Sasquatch audio recordings known as the Sierra Sounds. This is the website where you can learn about Ron's travels, the products he offers, and his continued research into the enigmas of the world. That website we have in the link or in the description of this program. The link is ronmorehead.com. Let's bring him in right now, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome back to Darkness Radio, Ron Morehead. Ron, welcome in to the program.
Well, thank you, Tim. I appreciate this invite. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
No one else sees you, I guess, but I see you.
Well, yes, we see each other, and that's all that matters. First of all, the last time we talked to you, we did talk ad nauseum about the language and the fact that there is an actual language between these creatures, which was fascinating. I mean, absolutely fascinating. I know that, as humans, we're basically chattering chimps between you and I. But this language, if you will, can you describe it for us, what it is that these creatures are saying between them?
Well, we don't know what they're saying between them, but we know it is a language by the definition of language, which means a morphine stream of words like we're doing. Mm-hmm. And only humans are supposed to be able to do that. So I had, Professor Carlin at the University of Wyoming studied these for a year and showed how they were outside and inside and below and above the human range. And it represented, compared to the human vocal mechanism, it represented an animal over 8 foot tall. And then they had a cryptolinguist trained by the Navy to transcribe the sounds, codes, and things like that to see if it was any deception in them or what have you. He came out and interviewed me in Alberia in 2008, I think it was. And he came back and said, these things have a complex language by the human definition of language, which is to what I just mentioned, the morphine stream of words. And we have sapience, we have this thing that other animals don't have. And according to Dr. Lieberman, Brown University, only humans have that. So to me, that puts these three items together, and there's a human component to the ones we interacted with up here in the Sierras. So I want to say this out front, though. I don't think they're all the same.
Okay.
All these things you call Bigfoot are not the same. I've been all over the world with this stuff, and really, I just think there's all kinds of things been happening through the intervention into the genome of different species on this planet, and that's probably by aliens, which are alien to us anyway. Mm-hmm. But they've been here a lot longer than we have, Homo sapiens, in my studies, I think. And so I just feel like there's a human component to what we dealt with. So we call them Bigfoot. We don't. They just got a big foot. That's why we call them Bigfoot.
Yeah.
They're huge. They are huge, and they're very intelligent, much more so than what we thought when we was recording these things 50 years ago. They're just very special, and had no idea what we were dealing with. It was a hunting camp 8 miles in the wilderness, and a very imposing area to get to, 8,400 feet elevation when you finally get there. And anyway, these things would come around us at night, in the evening time, right after we'd eat or something. Sometimes we leave food out for them, and they would take it. And sometimes you hear the chattering back and forth. And we started taking tape recorders up there, and they'd come back again when we was there. I guess they felt safe, because when it first started, it was pretty aggressive sounding. And you didn't know if they were thinking about coming to the little shelter we was in, which was a bunch of logs around this big group of trees that grew in a circle, and anyway, you didn't know what their intentions were. We just didn't know what we were dealing with. We weren't looking for Bigfoot when it was up there. It was just a hunting camp, and been hunted from the Johnson brothers since 1958. So it was quite exciting, to be honest with you, because we all had high-powered guns, a hunting camp. So we were about to go up there without guns anyway, but there's more than besides Bigfoot out there in the woods. We had a lot of bear up there too, and plus, we got a 52-inch rattlesnake going up the trail one time, which I got a hatband made out of that right now. So
yeah, I see that.
Not this one.
Well,
this is alligator.
I was going to say, the teeth in that are not, are not bear. That is alligator, isn't it?
Alligator, and one's a shark tooth. And,
I see that. Huh.
I lost one of them. Had to replace it with something.
I see.
Couldn't chase down that alligator quite.
I don't know that I'd want to chase a second alligator just to get a tooth there, Ron. That's for sure.
Anyway, that's kind of how it got started with me. I started going back there quite a bit. It didn't really start until 1971 when these things started really making sounds around the camp, and that's when one of the guys just got scared off, because you still don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know if they're arguing over who going to take the food that was left out, or who's going to put salt and pepper on us. You just don't know.
Yeah.
So it was exciting, I got to tell you, and it still is. I stopped going. I haven't been up there since 2018 when I took David Paulides up there to do the filming on this, the Hunted, 401 The Hunted. I got about 15 minutes inside that film he made. And anyway, 2016 is the last time I had something happen up there. I was up there. We had taken the shelter down in 2015, so we was in a little tent, but it had an open top to it, a screen top, so you could see out. And it was just dark when we went in, and looked, and I seen this light floating by us out there, probably about 40 feet away, elongated light, and like I call it similar to a saber, something like you'd see in Star Wars or something, And it's just floating through the trees, and you don't know what to do with that. It's a form of energy, I think, because so many things happened to us up there. It was strange, not just the Bigfoot stuff. If it's a Bigfoot, it could have been just a pure alien. I don't know, because you don't know what no one's got one, so you don't know what the genome is for sure. But I know what we dealt with does have a human component. So
okay. Let me ask you this. You mentioned David Paulides was up there. What was his impression of the area?
Oh, well, it's a wilderness. Nothing happened when he was there, but I didn't expect it to. He just wanted to get to the camp like so many people do and see it. And I've known him for years, and he's considered a good friend. In fact, he's writing the forward to my new book right now. Okay. He already did. And so, he's a nice guy. I mean, he's former detective in law enforcement, and he had him and his videographer. It's all that, and I was hesitant about taking anybody there because I've never done this before, never taken anybody in to do this. And but he was careful about not giving away where it is, and I don't want the area to be inundated.
Yes, yeah.
But because it's still, I'm not sure if anybody's still hunting in that area. I think the group that I was involved with, half of us are dead now.
Yikes.
I'm in my 80s. Gosh, time flies when you have fun, right?
It does. Well, that brings up an important question here, Ron. And I hate to deal with the subject of mortality, but do you have it set up so, God forbid, something happens to you or one of your party? Is someone going to take over your work?
Well, my work, as far as the books and CDs and things that I sell, yeah, that's all set up. But going up there is another story, because I'm not sure. Uh, it caught on fire after David and I left up there. The whole California was on fire at that time, I think. So I did fly over in a little plane, though, and looked it over, and it looked like the whole area right there where our camp is didn't totally get burned. It's a lot of trees still there and all. Still a lot of trees everywhere. It's a big area. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not sure. I haven't been there back. I haven't been back. And I live in North Carolina now, and that's on the West Coast, Sierra Nevada mountains.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm pretty sure. In fact, I know there's a couple people know where it is that could still find it.
Okay.
So if that really had to happen, but I'm not so sure it's just the camp that's important, because they've been seen all over the area in the Sierras. I mean, a lot of people have reported them, and I've interviewed a lot of people that's reported them, and there's just a lot going on in that whole area. A lot going on everywhere, really. This is a big subject now. I mean, when I speak at these conventions, there's hundreds of people show up, sometimes thousands. And I've got, one coming up in March. It's supposed to have 20,000.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a big group.
Well, let me circle around to something you said earlier here in the program, and that's this. You said they're all different types, much like here on Earth, when we talk about, well, not like they're anywhere else, but when we talk about Homo sapiens, we're talking about, different races, quote unquote, of Homo sapiens or whatever, or we talk about different, I don't know, a keen way of putting this, Ron.
I think I know what you're trying to
I'm trying to put this politically correct, but I'm not. Well, I'm not doing it very good.
I really think that the different types of aliens have been on this planet, and probably still here or messing around with us. And I think that some of them have created different species with their genetic modification, changing the DNA of primates or of other species. And it may be so they can adapt their hybridization to this planet's environment. I don't know. And again, this is my thoughts just because I've probably been around this subject more than most people. And in fact, more than just about anybody that I know of. And it's been over 50 years now. I've been looking into this. And it's just, that's why I think there could be different types of these things. Because if you get into the Yeti in Nepal, it's different. And you get into... I went into Russia, into Siberia, the wild man, they call it there. Mm-hmm. You just got different names for them all over the world, but they seem to be being seen. And that's by more and more people all the time. And it's just, it's something that the government can't keep denying it forever. It's like the UFOs, they got to bring it out.
True.
And it's got to be brought out. And what they are, though, if they are something messed with us, we're hybrids basically. Something created what we are, sapiens, and put that into. I don't just believe in evolution. I think probably it's happened, but what were the cavemen? What were they? Did they have what we have? As far as sapiens goes, I don't think they did, because I think that's something that was put into the human genome a few thousand years ago. And we've evolved from there.
Well, what are these subtle changes that you're seeing from the Yeti to the wild man to the Sasquatch you might see here, even on the West Coast, that you're seeing in the Sierra and Nevada mountains?
Well, the Yeti is shorter, and they're said to be about 6 foot tall. They all have different, not all, but a lot of them have different attributes. Some of them have the sagittal crest, and some of them do not. And that's in the West. A lot of people say, well, there's two different kinds of these things. In fact, that took me down to South America, because they had those elongated skulls down there, so I went down there with a couple of scientists at 2 different times, and we studied those, went all over Peru and Bolivia and those places, looking at this stuff. And when you see what I saw, if I said that right, you can't help but believe there's been advanced technology here, and they've done some things to this planet that we still don't know what it is today. It's just how they did what they did with those megalithic structures and moved them around. But there's been giants on this earth, and there's a lot of remains of those things being found, even in North America, but they seem to be covering them up here more than anywhere else. UFOs and stuff like that are commonplace. You get down south in South America and Central America. They don't think much about it. They just see them all the time. Yeah. We see them, but they get covered up, laughed at, or something.
I got to ask this question, Ron, because you're tying a lot of this to alien and UFO activity. So I've always been curious, and I'm going to go down this road with you because I've gone down this road with other Sasquatch authorities, and that's this. First of all, do you think, and there's a story recently that said that there were other authorities in the field that thought that maybe Sasquatch lived in caves or Bigfoot lived in caves, deep caves, and that's why you never see these creatures out roaming frequently around the woods, or they're not typically, or that's how they disappear, so to speak. Are you of a mind that that's where they live, or do you think they live in another dimension? Do they take just a step to the left and that's why these tracks disappear? Where do you think these things go?
Oh, I got a lot to say about that.
Okay, please.
Yeah, they very well could live in caves. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. A lot of cave structures around this planet, where we don't even know about that. But there's a thing about them disappearing too, as far as the tracks stopping. I've had that happen to me. And there's a science behind everything. I think it's not classical science, so it's quantum science.
Okay.
And Al Berry, the investigative reporter we took up to camp and started joining us up there in 1972, he experienced this stuff too, and he experienced some of the strange stuff that was happening. And classical science just did not answer that. And he says, whatever you do, when you get talking about this, don't talk about this weird stuff that's going on up here because people won't listen to you anymore. So we didn't for a long time. I do now because I think I found the science that really answers some of the enigmas we had associated with these beings. I call them beings because I still don't know what they are.
Sure.
But yeah, the different ones, I think a lot of them have evolved and been here so long they've crossbred with indigenous people. And that means the chromosomes would be adapted to humans. And that's what I think. I think the Patterson film was probably a diluted Bigfoot because you see the tracks, and there's a lot of differences in the tracks too. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of those all over. And ours are different. They're bigger, they're splayed, and they were always consistent over the years that this was going on with us up there. Same configuration, not the same size, but same configuration. And they weren't weird, but they were just very regular. They didn't have a lot of arch to them, let's put it that way.
Okay.
They had 5 toes straight across the top of them. And where the Patterson film tracks, which I have one here, Bob gave it to me, they're more human-like. They got a good arch to them. Their toes are slanted like ours. And I just think there's been a lot of crossbreeding going on. And we're talking about eons of time now. We're not talking about this last 100 years. So these things have been around since, I think they've been around since before we were Homo sapiens. And that's thousands of years. Of course, now I'm talking about us.
Right.
Whatever made us. They've been here since before that. In my opinion. And this is all, of course, my opinion, but it's based on my 50 some odd years of doing this stuff too. Did I answer your question?
In a way, but we're getting on an interesting tangent. So in my mind, I'm running this through. What do you think these beings are crossbreeding with?
Indigenous people.
But
Native Americans.
But anything other than indigenous people? Because the way you're describing some of these tracks, to me, I'm running this through my mind and I'm thinking, well, do you think maybe there's a chance that, you've mentioned alien before, and maybe there's some alien DNA in there as well, but is there a third source?
Well, all aliens aren't the same.
True. Right.
It depends on which one did what. Right. This, in my opinion, just talk about the dogman. They get a lot of dogman reports back here.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. But I've never dealt with the dogman, but I have no doubt now that they're around because I was just in Tennessee at a conference and these guys took me out to big, huge park. Goes into Kentucky and Tennessee, and one of them, a deputy sheriff, and a retired deputy sheriff, there's been a lot of these cases out there, and they close off part of the park when this happens. But these dogmans are terrorizing people, some of them in there, and they don't want this information out. None of the parks do.
Yeah.
Yosemite, where we were close to, was our camp was between Yosemite and Lake Tahoe in California, and there's been more reports supposedly about Bigfoot in that area. But out here, it's like Dogman, even though they do see Bigfoot too. It's just, why don't they catch one? That's what I'm writing about my new book. How does that happen?
Right.
Well, how can they do? Can they disappear? Can some of them do that and some don't have that attribute? Or can some of them just been sort of so much crossbreeding into indigenous people that they've recessed that area? Because we have a lot more than we give ourselves credit for, a lot more going on. We have not evolved far enough yet. But that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're here for, is to evolve. And, but, I was going to go to now, but it's, I was going to talk about how they disappear. You want to hear that?
Yes. Yeah.
Because an hour goes really fast.
It does.
That's why I'm talking fast, too.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
Well, you've got matter and energy, right? You can see matter, you don't see energy unless you have a fine eyeball or something. Your eye only sees within certain frequencies. And according to Tesla, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. You're made of energy, and at the most minute level, it's vibrating at a certain frequency. You find the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. You can change it. And that's Einstein. He came up with that. And then Dr. Dirac from Florida, he got the Nobel Prize in 1933 for antimatter. And that's the direct exchange between matter and energy. Now, once you change matter into energy, you don't see it anymore. So my question is, I think these things have the vocal mechanism to reach the frequency to change their matter into energy. And that way their track would stop because there's no density to them anymore. And you won't see them anymore either. So there's my answer to that part. When you have it happen to you, you got to figure it out. There's an answer to everything.
That's true.
And we're just in a spot in this classical science that we've all been raised in, so Newtonian physics, 1687, which we got to live in because we're in a three-dimensional environment, right?
Yes. Yep.
But there's more dimensions going on according to quantum physics. There's more things that we just don't see. Our limited frequency is our eyesight, and that's between 420 and 770 terahertz. And that's all the frequency we can see. Once you go out of that, there's all these other frequencies that you just don't see. Some animals can see into that frequency. A cat, I think, can. They can follow things around. You don't know what they're looking at. There's all kinds of things around us right now, maybe, but we're not seeing. And unless you can tune into their energy, some people claim they can, and that's where you see ghosts too, I think. That's in the fourth dimension of time. And anyway, we're all going somewhere. Energy, which we're made of, cannot die. That's according to physics. So if you're a religious person, you say, well, if I die, I'm going to go to heaven, I hope. You're a physicist, you say, I'm just going to change forms. So what that form is, we'll have to think about that one because we don't know. However, I believe in multiple embodiments because I don't think we can get everything accomplished that we're supposed to accomplish in one lifetime. And that means learn how to raise our frequency so we can go out of the third dimension into the fifth or sixth. We're made to be light beings, though, and I think that's the ninth dimension. That's where you get into the Anunnaki. They were light beings, sky people. And that's the cuneiform text, which is in Mesopotamia. And you study this stuff. And that's what I've been doing now for all these years. And it's really exciting because it gets you into this this esoteric world, where it's called etherical, I should say. That's a better word for it. It's just fun because we are spiritual beings inhabiting a body. People hear that all the time, but they don't really delve into what that really means. Our consciousness, Einstein said nothing going faster than speed of light. So everything in this three-dimensional environment is based on speed of light. Right. Once light hits it, it's real. And that's real to you anyway when you see it. You think it is anyway.
Yeah.
But light has got this frequency, and we don't smell, our olfactory sense is not as good as a bear. Bear's 20 times more than us. And they can smell right through a can and know if they like what's in it or not. It's true.
Yeah.
And a dog, they'll hear ultrasound, and we don't hear ultrasound or infrasound. So that you get it, study this stuff, and it's real. It's not like there's some floating out there. Well, it's just a theory. Well, it's been proven mathematically. Unless somebody can disprove it mathematically, it's going to stay there. And that's how Paul Dirac won the Nobel Prize in 1933 for antimatter. That was actually proven in CERN in 2012 when energy turned into matter. They could detect it when it hit that, but they could not see it. So that's what I think happens when these things disappear is they go out of our perception. They do it through the frequency they can make with their vocal mechanism, possibly because it's really complex, their vocal mechanism is through studies. And it's just so complex. We can't even do what they do. And you hear all kinds of stuff when we were up there. We could not ever figure the source of it. Metallic sounds, sounds that sound like a tuning fork above us in the daytime. You never could see anything, but it was something that was making that sound. And other things like that would happen up there. One night we was inside the shelter. And I say these things a lot because they're on my CD. I talk about this a little bit. And we saw, we thought we was all inside the shelter, several of us. And I say several, there's only 5 or 6 altogether of us up there. There used to be 6, but one guy wouldn't go back. He's freaked out. Very religious person. And we're all fairly, I was raised Christian, but I'm not a religious person. I'm just a spiritual person like you are, like everybody is, whether they like it or not.
Yep.
You do have that going. So anyway, all these sounds were going on like our camp was being tore apart out there. And we looked out there after it all stopped and nothing had changed. When we had haul barrels in, so we could ring barrels, so we could keep our food and our sleeping bags in them. So when we did walk in there without the horses, we wouldn't have to carry so much stuff. And of course, we've taken all that out now because, anyway, whatever you take in, you got to take out. That means you got to have animals pretty much because it's a lot to carry. Anyway, nothing changed. So how do you answer that? I mean, did they hypnotize us all so that we, this was happening when these things were out there. And what do you do with it? One time, talk about ultrasound or infrasound, Warren Johnson, the leader of our group, he and I were up there. I think we were by ourselves, and as far as other members. And this thing was making its sounds right outside the shelter there, just probably 30, 40 feet away. And there's a big tree over there. We thought, well, he's got to be behind that tree. So we thought, well, we was getting pretty bold then because we realized they wasn't going to break in and eat us or nothing, or carry us away or whatever. So we both said, well, let's shoot out the doorway, which is just a log between 2 big trees. That was our doorway. And we'll see it run away. Bright moonlit nights, And we did that. We jumped out there, started walking towards that tree, nothing ran away. We was creeping pretty slow and watching, and we got a few feet away from that tree, and we both got stopped by something. I mean, like a force field, I relate to it because you can't go, and you can go backwards, but you can't go any further. And Warren said, I don't know about you, and we hadn't been talking to each other, and we weren't afraid at that time. When fear was not we were too dumb to be afraid, I guess. But we went back in the shelter because we couldn't go any further. As soon as we got back in, that thing started mouthing up again out there behind that tree. And I brought that up to a scientist one time. He said, well, it has to be infrasound or pheromones because those things will affect humans. However, they say humans, pheromones only affect what's in its own species.
Right.
So at that time, we thought, well, they're not humans, so they must have been ultrasound or infrasound,
Right.
Which does affect humans. That's what elephants use to communicate over long distances, and large animals do that.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that these things are able to do infrasound and ultrasound too if they want to. Because you change any sound up 40 octaves from any sound that you play. If you sing 49 octaves, it will change into light. I don't know. Not too many people know about that one, but that's interesting.
Yeah,
because you hear orbs too. We had orbs following us around up there. Whether the Johnson brothers did, I didn't have that happen to me, but I've seen them. But I've never had them follow me around. I did see a UFO coming down up there one time, a big blue ball, huge, from the stars, and it just came down and just floating down. definitely control, but lost it behind the trees. So there's just, we thought originally we were studying them, but there's so many strange things going on. They were messing with us. Come find out. Yeah, we set up camera traps, do all kinds of stuff trying to trick them, and never could trick them. But we underestimated their intelligence and their level of intuitiveness.
You're not the first person who's been on the show, Ron, that's put together a piece that UFO or alien and Sasquatch or Bigfoot have been hand in hand. It seems like where Sasquatch is, an alien isn't too far behind, or they seem to be interconnected. And that I don't know what that is or why that's. Are they one and the same? It seems to me like you're saying they may be.
I think the government has finally told us it's okay to talk about aliens and UFOs now, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of brings it out to light, because I wouldn't have said something like this 5 years ago, probably.
Right. Well, there's a whole camp that.
But I thought this a lot. I never would talk about it because, but there's a whole camp of these people like, no, they're just flesh and blood. They're just apes.
Right.
Well, the flesh and blood, or you're an aper. Are you aper? I mean, or you're a UFO crazy guy.
Right.
Well, they doesn't have to be separated. They could be both. And again, if these things, some of them have been here for so long, they've probably evolved into what a lot of people are seeing now, which they call a relic hominid, which they not, but I don't think what we were dealing with up there was just that, because they definitely have some attributes that we don't understand. And so that I'm not sure what some of these other ones could do. I haven't been around them like I have with those up there, but it was exciting times, I'll tell you. I got to see one, and that's, of course, again, my daughter saw three different times she saw them. And Bill, my friend, got a glimpse of one like I did one night when they came in around us while we were outside the shelter, which is very unusual. But he and I were the only ones there. We'd taken supplies in on horses, mules, and they started playing around, knocking rocks, whooping back and forth, and found out the next day that they got there before we did. So they knew who we were when we left, and I think they went right to the camp where they knew where we was going, and they were excited. I mean, that's when I had something. They started yelling at us, and I started yelling back over outside, mimicking them. I think they thought that must have been funny. That's the night I recorded the samurai cry. Got my little cassette tape recorder out of my saddlebag, and these things were chattering so much and back and forth. I think there were three of them there that night, and one of them made the big samurai cry behind me. And they called it samurai cry. Actually, Mike Moneymaker, BFR, coined that sound. He said it sounded like a samurai. He heard that before he started the BFRO, and so it's kind of hung in there since then, because there's a lot of chatter like that goes on between these things. They talk so rapidly. Of course, they got a bigger head too, so they got a bigger tongue, bigger everything.
It's interesting that they're playful to a point, and it's much like us humans. I mean, we have different personalities. We could be jovial, we could be ornery, we could be downright angry and want to take something out. Have you run into the ones that are more hostile, that just don't want anything to do to you or to do with you, and maybe want to even have some harm befall you if you get too close?
Well, I haven't ran into them. That'd be bad if they wanted to do that to me, because they could.
Right, yeah.
I did go into Portlock, Alaska with the filming crew a couple of years back, and I think I was on episode 5 and 6 of Alaska Killer Bigfoot, or 4 and 5, I'm not sure. And those are supposed to be very hostile. The whole camp got evacuated, not evacuated, but they abandoned the thing in the late 1940s when these things were, I say these things, they said there was one that looked Bigfoot-like. They call it something different up there, but it was killing their people, tearing their arms off and mangling them, and that's not what bears do anyway. And I just got a feeling, I gave them, they wanted a Bigfoot expert, which I don't call myself an expert, let's put it that way right now, but I guess expert's just somebody who knows a little more than somebody else.
Sure, yeah.
And I do know a little more. I presented to them because they flew me in there from Homer, Alaska, on helicopter, and I circled the area in this helicopter and looked it over. And my opinion of that is, it looks like years ago it had been heavily timbered, and now the young growth is back up, but there's a few, you can see right where it all happened. And they were also, I found out from reading it, they were mining the area. And then I found out too from pictures they showed me, there was a lot of fishing going on. I mean, they were overfishing it, just, but that's what they did. They didn't realize they did anything wrong. But there's something going on. These things hate it, I believe. I got a whole chapter about trees in this next book I got coming out. They dislike us cutting trees down and destroying the planet and not respecting what we've got here. And we do. We disrespect it. We're messing this planet up. And until we learn not to do that, I think, and I told them, one of these things would have come crashing out of the trees when we were there. I have no doubt somebody would have shot at it. And I imagine that's what was happening back in those days. Somebody shot at it and probably hit it, and that stings.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bear in that country too, but this was evidently not a bear. And bears don't do what this thing was doing either. So, and we did have something happen up there. So I'm pretty sure that there's a presence up there of these things. There's nobody, you have to take a long boat ride or get helicoptered in. Thank goodness they helicoptered me in. Beautiful ride, though.
I bet.
But yeah, there's been reports of these things being hostile. But again, I think what I try to impress upon people if they are out in the woods, don't try to control your fear, because I think your fear is what nails you. And if you have fear and you shoot at these things, well, that's going to not be pleasant with them. So I think, of course, again, I don't know what they were designed to be. Maybe they're designed to be angry, or maybe they're designed to be hostile. What we were dealing with in the Sierras with these Bigfoot that were up there is they were not hostile to us, even though they sounded that way, but I think they were being hostile to each other over something. But up there, and other places too, they seem to be aggressive. So I just suggest to people they keep their guard up and try to keep their fear down. Because it's hard to do when these things start doing what they do, to not be afraid, because you're just afraid of the unknown and know who you are as a human being. I try to emphasize that too, how important we are as a human being to be put on this earth to experience the experiences we're experiencing, and to never consider yourself a victim during any circumstance, because you're going to learn something from it. And if you no one's going to die, you're just going to go somewhere else. So why not just have fun and do your best to show love and compassion to everybody and not be aggressive to anybody. And I think that's what raises our personal vibration.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Yeah.
We got
to step up. Yeah, right.
That's true. Let's take our break right here. When we come back, we'll talk with Ron a little bit more about these creatures, these beings, and a little bit more about when we do interact with them, what our intention should be. Should we be trying to communicate with them? And we'll talk about the ultimate question: to feed or not to feed. I got to ask Ron this question as someone who's interacted with these beings quite a bit. We've been told not to, but I want to ask him, has he actually put out offerings for these creatures? And we'll get that side of the story as well. And we'll play a sound or two. And Ron has mentioned the samurai cry, and we'll talk about different interactions, and we'll talk about the quantum Bigfoot and the quantum realm. We've mentioned the quantum realm a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about how is it that these things sleep, in different things that they do, and how you surmise what it is they do when they sleep, when they die, different rituals and different things that they do, and do they do it like us? So we'll talk to Ron about how it is that Sasquatch exists, and do they exist like humans, or are we projecting our traits onto them? We'll do that when we come back. Our guest is Ron Morehead. We're talking about the Quantum Bigfoot. We've got links to his website and to his books and recordings, which I encourage you to go get, because the subject, folks, is absolutely fascinating. the Sierra sounds, the audio recordings themselves are fascinating. And he's got those available for sale on his website. He's also got the Quantum Bigfoot book available as well. Go to ronmorehead.com. We got a link to that website available as well in the description of this program. When we come back, more with Ron Morehead. You're listening to the best in paranormal programming. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal programming. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is Ron Morehead, and we're talking about the Sierra sounds, the sounds of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and the Quantum Bigfoot, and why Bigfoot isn't exactly what you just see out in the woods or what you may just hear out in the woods. Before the break, Ron, I was talking about why we shouldn't just automatically throw human traits onto Bigfoot or assume that Bigfoot is just like us. One of the things that we've been told, whether it be through the media or whether it be through television, things we see on television, the first thing we want to do is with any creature out in the wild, we want to relate to it. We want to bond with it. First thing we want to do is offer food, because that's what we want with us. If a stranger comes to us, we want to be offered a meal, or we want to be offered a treat, or we want to be offered something that makes us feel good. So we assume that that's what they want. So we want to throw them something that we like, our favorite food. Is that the wrong thing to do with these beings? Is to throw them our favorite treat?
Well, unless they've made the contact first. I don't think you should do that just because you think you're in their area or something, because you don't know unless you figure up a pretty good trap. You don't know what's really taking it. We put ours way up high sometimes. Sometimes we left on the stove because we knew what was taking it. And but they can gift you too. We had the gifting going on with us, and I think it's because we did give them food. I don't know that I would recommend that until, again, there's been a good rapport built with them or some type. So they are, I keep saying they, again, there's different types of these and different agendas on some of these things. So I want to be careful what I say here. I don't give people the wrong opinion that they can just go out and start playing with these things. But you do have to go out try to have no fear. And that, again, is the hardest thing. Once you get over that fear factor, because they can sense that. They can see that in your aura. You know, we're all energy, we talked about before, and that energy puts out a color. And that color could be seen by some people even. And in fact, a lot of people read auras. Animals, I think, are really good at that. Yeah. I know my horse, you can tell. Yeah. They know the attention before you get on them. I've seen people who are afraid of a horse, and the horse will be all over them, Yep. And then those people who know how to ride, not afraid of the horse, and the horse just okay with that. Anyway, I just want to caution people that, they're not all necessarily going to be, handing out cupcakes or anything. And you're right, there is an intent and an intention, so to speak, with all of this. That brings up another thing. When you're strolling in the woods, if you have a bad intention, you mentioned that, you of course go out into the camp or your camp with a weapon, but you go with that weapon with the idea that you don't know what's out there, and you go with an idea of defense. You don't go out there with the idea that you're out there to destroy everything that moves. But there are some people, and let's face it, it's not widespread, but there are some people that just go out there with the idea of a bloodlust. Those people, are they in for a shock and awe if they do run into one of these creatures? Yeah, well, they're going to be shocked because a lot of people don't believe it until they see it. Until they see something like that, they're probably never going to believe it. But I think again they read your intent and they know. We carry guns. It's a hunting camp. Of course, we felt like we was either John Wayne or Wyatt Earp, or you're on a horse, you're rugged country. You're ringing mules, you're doing all the fun stuff that you want to do when you're little. There you are, a big grown-up kid. I was 29 when this started with me, and it stayed with me for all these years. But yeah, if people go out with the wrong intent, probably nothing ever going to happen unless it happens by accident, and that's pretty unusual. A lot of times people see these things, they're so frozen they have a gun or a camera, they don't use it, just because. And there's so many people seeing these nowadays because they are multiplying, and when they're in a third dimensional environment, I think they don't mess with us because of our karma. Nothing's supposed to mess with us. We have things to do and things to respond to on this earth, and we got to learn how to respond to them properly. And nothing's supposed to interfere with that. And that's why aliens don't really interfere that much, at least not obviously. And that's why Bigfoot doesn't interfere with us, because they did interfere with us up there. And I don't know why, other than so I could talk with you today.
Let me ask you about that camera question. Why is it so hard to get a good video? I mean, we recently did get a good video in Colorado of one, but why is it so hard to get good video of Sasquatch?
Because they're really aware. I mean, they're much more than what most people give credit for. And again, I think if some of them have been diluted down through crossbreeding with the people, they become dumber like us. And I shouldn't say it that way, because you don't know. We don't know. I don't know much either, just a little more than most people.
It seems to me like they've become more elusive over time and not less elusive.
Well, I think we're encroaching in their territory a lot more, and I think they're multiplying. And they do, I think a lot of them live in cave systems underground. If they do change their vibrational frequency and change their matter into energy, which is possible, who knows? They might be staying in a UFO someplace. I don't know. Going off into another dimension, which time will not exist as we know it, perceive it in our linear time frame here on Earth. We won't experience that and you get it out of this dimension. And that's what we're all headed for. We're headed for that someday.
Now, some people may say, well, what if I'm walking in the woods and I come across, and I want to get into of course, the misgivings or the misconceptions of a better word of what people think a Sasquatch is or how they live. People may say, well, maybe I'm taking a walk in the woods or I'm doing whatever, and I may run across where these things live. We have this misconception that these things live like a squirrel may live, like they have their own dens or they have their own homes that they set up or whatever. How do you perceive how these things live after having spent all this time in the woods? Do they have these elaborate dens or these elaborate burrows?
Well, they're a lot bigger than a squirrel.
Yeah.
So if they have a den, it's going to be bigger than a squirrel's nest. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, there's a lot of boulders and a lot of underground systems that we've not even discovered yet. And I think there's probably some where we were up there. There's huge mountains and a lot of bluffs that you can't get into or around too easily at all. And there could be a tunnel system right there. In fact, it's all volcanic, And so I think that possibly when they, especially if they have children, I think they raise their children in a third dimensional environment like what we are in. And we're seeing more and more of that because we had a small one up there and it was being raised there. And that may have been what the male was so aggressively sounding about because he didn't want the little one coming close to us like it was. I think they're getting bolder. They want to learn about it. I don't know. I'm just guessing at all this stuff.
Sure.
I'm a good guesser. Yeah, it sounds like because one of them was, one of the little ones was making some sounds out of the creek, and you hear the mother or the bigger voice coming down on it, like don't get too close to these, these spy-head humans. And so my daughter seen one just right around our camp there. She saw them 3 times, but once was very clear. It was behind us. We just her eyes up there. And another thing, we got out for a walk or something, And I left my big backpack laying there and a sweaty T-shirt over the pack. We had our food was all in the pack, and left a nice loaf of bread in there, and come back and the bread was gone. The wrappings on the ground there. T-shirt was still over the top. None of the other food had been messed with. No bread was left. So, they mess with you like that. How do they do that stuff? They do have opposable thumbs. I'm sure that we got a handprint up there one time, but I'm getting off the track. We're running out of time, so I better.
No. That's a good story. I mean, hey, Bigfoot likes sandwiches. You never know, or at least Bigfoot doesn't have a gluten allergy. You like to know that,
right?
Yeah. That's a good thing. The other thing that I guess is the big argument in the community too is what does happen with Bigfoot when one passes away? What do they do with the remains?
The Native Americans, the lore that I've heard, and then I've heard quite a few of them over the years, but they said they'd take care of their own. As you get into Fred Beck's story from 1924, I think it was, when he claimed he shot one in Mount St. Helens and it fell off a cliff. Well, they went down there and it was gone. He came back with a sheriff, big 30 guys, I guess, were in there looking for something. Never could find it. He swears up and down he hit it really straight on. But prior to that, they'd seen these tracks around the camp. And one time they was tracking this one. And he said in order for it to not leave another track, it would have had to jump 160 feet.
Wow.
Well, so it disappeared. Like did it disappear? Its density stopped because it changed its matter. And then I hear these reports a lot over the years. I had a guy tell me at a board meeting I was at in Canada one time. He said that he could take me to a place up above Fairbanks where he saw one disappear. And that time, I just kind of put him on the shelf with all this other crazy stuff I'd heard, But I wonder why we didn't see them more often. And that could be because they were cloaking, so to speak, or we thought they would just hide behind these trees or something. And maybe they were. I don't know. But as much as we had interaction with them, as often as we had interaction, I had a stereo headset on my head, and I had two microphones with a stereo cassette player, the best kind you could get, deep battery operated. And I could hear these things bipedal walking around our shelter out there. Mm-hmm. People say, well, probably human. Well, no. Human would be an idiot to walk around us with all those guns we had. They'd yell, but I kept waiting for a light flicker between the logs that we had leaned up against these trees. And I never did see anything like that. And I often wondered, how come you hear it walking out there, but you don't see it walking out there? And that was always a puzzle to me, but there's so many puzzles that I think about now that was happening to us up there. I don't put anything past it because you get into quantum physics and you realize there's so much more going on that you just won't see, that you don't see with our 3D senses, which is based on everything you can see, feel, touch, or material, physical. And we're not that. That's all we had to deal with in this Earth 3D environment.
So, Ron, the way you describe it, do you think they have a way of cloaking themselves almost? That they have a way of almost going invisible and
yes,
so
yes.
So they
matter and energy are interchangeable. If they can change their matter, which that's what we are, matter, into energy, then Einstein said you find that the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. And I think that's how miracles were done, how they're done nowadays. If you can find the frequency of anything, you can change the matter. And that's not just biblical, but that's science too. And I talked about Paul Dirac earlier, for antimatter and how it was determined in CERN when that was a big deal. Most people don't even realize how big a deal that was. But when they changed a particle matter, which you can see, into energy, and the CERN did that. And that was a aha moment for them in CERN. To establish Paul Dirac's theory, which was mathematical, but he got the Nobel Prize for it in 1933. Yeah, they can cloak. At least what we were dealing with, they can cloak. I think a lot of them can, because I've heard reports, several over the years, many really, that they saw them disappear. They turn into, they call it the predator effect. They turn into this apicalization, and then it goes back to hell. Very credible people told me that, but they don't want to tell anybody else. Because they think that people think they're crazy, because everything we think we're at the top of the chain here, but no, there's so much more that we don't know. But we have to learn who we are as humans and what we really are all about and how we're really designed to be. We're designed to be light beings. That's what made us. I think the Anunnaki messed with the genome and have put us to what we are today. And I think we're designed to be like that. And they were light beings from the sky. And that's what the cuneiform text talks about from Mesopotamia and the Sumerian culture. And all the cultures back there were using the cuneiforms. You dig back deep enough from the biblical text, everything is just about all languages, first written texts of the human known to humans. Mm-hmm. And it's called cuneiform, just little wedge marks, tablets. They got hundreds of them, thousands of them, I guess.
Yeah.
And they find out the history of everything. I mean, just like our Bible was originally 83 chapters, then it went down to 73, and it's 66 now. And who does that? It's whoever's in charge, just like nowadays.
That's right.
Whoever's in charge of the colonization is who's going to determine the rules and who you can worship, what you can know, and all that stuff.
The winner dictates history, Ron. That's kind of how that deal works.
That's losers don't write it.
That's right. Only the winners dictate history. Let me play a couple of sounds here for our listeners before we go today. I have one of the whistle interactions here from the sounds that you offer online. And again, ronmorehead.com is where people can go to purchase the recordings that you have of these different Sasquatch sounds, the Sierra sounds. Mm-hmm. The whistle interaction, describe what it is that these Sasquatch are doing when they're whistling to each other.
I think it's a form of communication. It's done through the vocal cavity. We found it's not done through the lips. You'll hear on the sound if you play it, a human, Warren Johnson, I think it was, whistling. You hear a human whistle, then you hear their whistle. Okay. And their whistle, I've got a recording somewhere that the whistle actually turns into a chatter. And again, it's done through the vocal mechanism, through the vocal cords, and not through the lips like we whistle.
Okay,
there's throat stingers, and some countries have throat stingers that get pretty close to that, but nothing like this.
Let's play it real quick, and then we'll talk about it here afterwards.
Come on. You're not very sociable tonight. Come on down. Okay, I'll go back here.
Interesting. Wow. That's not just a regular sound you're going to hear out in the wilderness, is it?
I think they can mimic just about anything they want to mimic. They have their own complex language. What we dealt with this here, I got to keep bringing that up because I don't think they're all like that. They may not have all the ability. All of them do. That was Warren Johnson. You heard the whistling at it. It would whistle back through its vocal mechanism.
I was going to play one other sound here for our. I want to play the male and female interacting. Good example of two interacting back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, let's play this one and give people an idea of a male and female Sasquatch interacting here. Here we go. Now, see, to me, that sounds more ape-like. That does sound more like what I would expect a Sasquatch to sound.
Yeah, well, that's their language.
And now,
Of course, apes don't talk, you know.
no, right.
Well, throw that in there.
That's but Hollywood would have us believe that. I mean, if you've watched any Planet of the Apes movies, you would think that, I mean, if you were to hear that, you would go, oh yeah, that's what an ape sounds like. But apes don't talk, right?
No, right. According to Dr. Lieberman, Brown University, he studied the cognitive languages in howler monkeys and different primates. He says only humans have the vocal mechanism for language, which means a hyoid bone here and connected with a lot of nervous systems in the tongue, which goes into the brain, and it tells us we can talk about what we're seeing, and we can say unlimited amount of words, you know, sounds, except they have to stay within our range. That's what Dr. Curlin studied. He shows in a graph of the paper he wrote, you know, just where the sound icons were for the vocal that he was checking out at the time. And the average human range is a certain way, and then these things can go in and out of that. And I had a lot of people talk about, you know, how they can't reach these sounds. And Joe Rogan said he could do that sound. Well, he can't.
No,
he can't step on. He can't do that. And maybe I shouldn't brought up his name, but
no, you can bring it up. No, that's absolutely.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah,
you know, he's got some good things. I was supposed to be on his program one time, but it didn't go. He's using the bullshit meter too much. I think I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
But he's a good guy. I was going to say too, those two that were arguing, if that's the one you're playing, I couldn't hear the sound you're playing, but that's what I'm thinking about. I had a linguist expert. She had perfect sound, and she listened to the sound. She says, I don't know what's going on there, but she says that's not human, and it's the female won the argument, by the way.
Oh, well, most of them do.
There you are. There you are.
Ron, yeah, one way or the other, they always win.
Yeah. Well, you can let them win or be happy.
That's right. So when the language expert broke it down and said the female won, how did she determine that the female won?
She's an expert in she was only 10 in California, court certified in several languages, perfect hearing. She could tell by the inflections on the sounds itself. And where the cryptolinguist did it differently, you know, he just wrote a transcription of the sounds. And then no one can tell me what they were saying. Well, people tried to tell me what they were saying, but when they all tell me something different, you don't know which one to believe. You know,
sure.
I'll know someday, but
yeah,
it's kind of been an exciting part of my life. Yeah, I've been very fortunate in my life.
Yes, yeah, and I'll say it, and an exciting life at that.
Yeah.
Now, what's really cool is that you've gone to independent sources, and each one of these independent sources have told you, Ron, you've got something here. It's not like they've turned you away and said, nah, I don't know. You know,
right. Well, actually, Dr. Lieberman turned out very well. He was a report investigator that was trying to get the work done on these sounds. He went to Dr. Lieberman, and Dr. Lieberman said, no, I won't listen. You're playing a game where you're probably a former student trying to get back at me for something. I wasn't, but you know, he wouldn't even listen to them.
Really?
So anyway, it wasn't until Dr. Curlin got a hold of him. He's a sound engineer, and he actually took it seriously. And Al said, I just want to know unbiasedly, you know, one way or the other. He didn't care as long as he knew if it was real or not. And they were made the sound of the time. They were not pre-recorded, backwards, slower, nothing like that, fast, slow. And there was no 60-cycle hum in them, which meant they would have been pre-recorded and played back.
Right.
So all that stuff's been studied, and you get everything involved just tells me that what we're doing is there had a human component to them.
I find it fascinating that the building blocks of speech, much like our speech, are there. I mean, everything is there in the speech. So it's not like it's just somebody randomly screaming into a recorder or making up gobbledygook, anything like that. All these different speech therapists and specialists have all verified that everything is there. So with that, we know that, and you pointed out that these apes and these different primates don't have that ability. So then what does that make Sasquatch? We can't call Sasquatch a primate then, can we?
Sure, he's a primate.
So yeah, he is a primate.
They're all primates.
Okay.
That's kind of undisputed, really. But depends on what made them, and what they did to their genome of the troglodyte, like us. I think we were made from something else. Man was here. You read the first and second chapter of Genesis, even you find out there's two different things going on there. Because the first chapter, he created man, and after that, well, he still had nobody to till the soil, so he formed Adam. Well, I think really, when you get into cuneiform text, you find out all kinds of things have been messed with because of the power in charge, But what they are, I think there's different kinds and different attributes of different kinds. A lot of them have been crossbred over the eons of time. I think they were here, a lot of them before we were, and maybe some afterwards. Again, I don't know the agenda of what made them, but some of them could be bad, some of them could be good. I don't really know.
Okay. As we're starting to wrap up here, you had mentioned before that there was a fire in the Sierra Camp area, but are there further developments with that area besides the fact that there is a fire and it looks like it's pretty much untouched? I mean, that area is pretty much untouched?
Yeah, it's still okay.
It's still okay.
What I saw when I flew over in a little plane, I'm a pilot too, by the way. Mm-hmm. And that's, anyway, yeah, it's really in the wilderness, and so you're not going to just go up there and build a house or something. It's quite remote, quite imposing area to get to.
Okay.
I've had a couple broken ribs trying to get in there sometimes. Of course, it went off the cliff.
Really?
Well, I went down the cliff with him. That's just a good memory. It wasn't good at the time.
Oh.
It is now. I thought I was going to have to shoot the horse, but I write about that in my first book, Voices in the Wilderness, which, by the way, a documentary is being made on that now, I think, and should be out later this year. People that I trust are doing a documentary on that whole thing, and it's a long time coming because, like you said earlier, the sounds they've been tried and tested over time. No one can dispute them, and anyone that looks into them, even the proof is out there, acknowledged them. Thinker Thunker acknowledged them, said no one can do this. And so it's just a unique thing that happened to me and these other guys. And there's only two of us left now. There are others that passed on. And all get older.
Yeah.
We're all going somewhere.
Right.
Everything's headed for something. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Yeah. And like you said, there's two of you left. You've got the documentary that's being made. You're working on a new book, right?
Well, just about got that done. Yeah, it's
okay.
Fixing it. Should be out hopefully by the end of February.
Okay, and then the Quantum Bigfoot is available as well right now on your website.
Quantum Bigfoot, and by the way, it's Morehead. One O. I must put two O's in that, and that won't get you anywhere.
Yep. Well, I should have. Yes, I should have. Qualified that.
Voices in the Wilderness, my first book, is my chronicle to talk about what all went on and how they got there. And when it comes to the context of the sound I'm talking about, you can actually hear the sound if you download the link I have in there. And I have 24, I think, links. 24. One link that gives you all 24 sounds.
Yep.
In the back of that book. And I used to send out the CD with it, but that was something I couldn't keep up with, trying to load the CD. Couldn't get. They're all available on my website they're ordered through Amazon, actually, but they're all downloadable too.
Yeah, and technology is a wonderful thing. That way you don't have to keep sending out the CD with the book, as long as you can attach that to the book. Yeah. I
got to order the CDs. And what's the first batch I came out was in color, CD, all that stuff.
Wow.
It cost me almost as much as I was getting for them.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
But really, I never went into this thing to make money. In fact, I've spent a fortune chasing this thing down. And it's just, but I used to make a lot of money, so that was okay.
Yeah. Oh, well,
but it's all gone now.
Well, the important part, really, Ron, is the story, and the story is fascinating. I think you've probably delved further into. I don't want to say further into the research, but further into just contact with this creature than most people have. Would you say that?
Well, most people I've ever heard of, I got more information on it, I think, than just about anybody that I know of. I know maybe somebody's got more than me. They just don't want to talk about it, but I talk about it because I think people should know. But it really has driven me from Bigfoot into who we are as humans, and I think that's extremely important for us to understand how privileged we are to be on this planet, experiencing things, to learn how to respond to things. And that's what's important, because that's how everything works through 3, 6, and 9, according to Tesla. Mm-hmm. And that's, he said, if you understand 3, 6, and 9, you understand how the universe is. Well, 3, we're in 3 dimensions. 6 is where you're going to start to be creative, but 9 is the ultimate. That's where the Anunnaki were. That's where angels are, a lot of things. And I think we're made to be that 9th dimensional being. So when AI comes out and says, well, we're going to transfer your consciousness into a robot, don't do it, because then you won't be all human. You won't be what you were made to be. And we're made to be special, and we are special.
I just got to go.
Ever consider yourself as a victim? Never, because you're going to learn something every time.
I just got to go on the side tangent. Does AI scare you? Is AI one of those things that you stay as far away from as possible? Because I know I have a trepidation about it. But
well, a lot of people do, because it's going to outrage us here one of these days. And it's going up so fast, it'll start creating its own people pretty soon. And that's when you got to watch out that it doesn't somehow get a consciousness to it, because that'll be a game changer.
Yeah,
it's almost a game changer already, because it's exponentially going fast. And I got my own theories about that, but no, you can still get a transplant, a heart transplant or something like that, or get another arm or a leg or something. I don't think that's wrong. Mm-hmm. But when you have your whole inside, all of you, your consciousness changed into something that's going to live for 1,000 years or something like that, well, I think I would turn that down.
Good. Sound
you
words,
never get, you'll only get to the 6th dimension. That's where you are. You never get to the 9th, and that's what you're created to be. And you want to be in the 9th. That's the ultimate, right, in my opinion.
Right? No. I hear what you're saying there, and the you have the skeptic out there that would tell you, well, Ron, when you die, you're only worm food. But
well, your body is. That's true.
Yeah. But you're only looking at half the equation there. You're only looking at half the transaction. So there's something to be said about looking at all sides of a equation or all sides of an issue.
Well, we're supposed to we're supposed to learn, and if you don't learn something, you got to learn it sooner or later.
Yeah.
You just have to somehow, some way. That's why I believe now. I wasn't trained this way in religion when I was growing up, but I think that way now. You have to have multiple embodiments to ever experience everything you're supposed to experience to get to where you're supposed to go. And to learn to respond to them. If I tell you don't need to respond to them, you're going to stay there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Different embodiment, but you're going to come back and have to go through that same crap again some way.
Very true. Very true. Folks, we've got the link in the description of the program. Again, it's Ron Morehead with 1 O, as he pointed out, and thank you for pointing that out, Ron. I appreciate that. RonMorehead.com. We have the link in the description of this program. Again, there's 2 books there. There's recordings of the Sierra Sounds on the website. I highly recommend you get both volumes of those Sierra Sounds, because man, there's even a 911 call there that sent shivers down my spine, Ron.
That guy was real.
Oh my God. This guy, just to set it up for people so they can go get those recordings, this guy has a Sasquatch in his yard and ends up looking face to face with it while he's on the phone with 911. You've got to go get those recordings, folks, and hear it for yourself. It is absolutely chilling. Ron, I want to thank you so much for being my guest here on the show today.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's been delightful, as Peter Byrne would say.
It has been delightful. Thank you so much, Ron. And let's do it again sometime soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Ron Morehead for coming on the program today and sharing about the Quantum Bigfoot and the sounds of Bigfoot from the Sierra Sounds in the Sierra area, from the Sierra Nevada mountains. Fascinating topic. There's the 2 different camps, the apers and the UFO people who have their different beliefs. And of course, much like the Hatfields and the McCoys, they go back and forth and argue the subject. And I mean, we could go at it until the end of time as to what you believe about the subject of Sasquatch and Bigfoot. It's always a fascinating topic. But Ron's body of work stretches decades. And some of the things that he's discovered are absolutely astounding. And again, I encourage you to go get those books and the recordings. I sat and listened to the recordings earlier today, and I got chills just listening to some of the things that he has captured. And you will too. You will just be fascinated with what it is that he's come up with research. And really, I encourage you to, if it's something that fascinates you, to get into that field. Like Ron was saying during the interview, it doesn't sound like there's too many people who are stepping up into this field, and especially at a younger age, that are wanting to wrap their arms around it and get a hold of it and figure out what's going on with it. It seems like the researchers that I'm familiar with are of middle age or older. And it's one of those things that we don't want to lose contact with. It seems like we are separating ourselves from the earth. And not to get on a soapbox or anything, but that we're losing touch with the earth, and we're getting more into technology. And with that, we are losing things like that supernatural tie to the earth. We don't want to lose track of that. So if this subject does call to you, get with somebody like Ron Morehead and see if you can, maybe, for lack of a better term, become a supernatural intern and acquire that knowledge. There is nowhere to go to school for this stuff. And there is, like Ron said, there's no such thing as an expert. But if you can acquire that knowledge, especially over a lifetime, with somebody like Ron Morehead or Eric Altman or any of these guys, and acquire the knowledge and be able to pass it down from generation to generation, we can only learn more about, being such as this, and learn more about ourselves. The knowledge that Ron has is just astounding to me. And that's why it's guests like this that I like to continue to bring to the program and be able to pass on to you. And again, if you have a guest that you'd like to hear from, email me at tim@darknessradio.com. I welcome your input, because I want to continue to bring fascinating guests like Ron to the program so that we can continue to hear from guests like this and expand our not only our mindset, but our knowledge set as well. Coming up on the weekend, I want to remind you to be a light in someone's darkness this weekend. Continue to do what you can for a neighbor, a friend, a stranger, a complete stranger, and do what you can to make the world a little bit better place. Boy, it's been cold out there, folks. Man, below zero temperatures and cold temperatures around the nation. I don't care where you are. When you're in New Orleans and it is 20, 30 degrees, it's freezing, folks. I'm just telling you, it's freezing. If you can donate a coat, a hat, a winter jacket, whatever, to help keep somebody warm, please do that. If you can, help out at a soup kitchen or whatever to help keep somebody's belly full, please do that. Do whatever you can to help somebody this weekend. I know we're coming out of the deep freeze a little bit around the nation, but still there's people that need that help out there. If you can help somebody, please do this weekend. It'd be greatly appreciated from your buddies here at Darkness Radio. Got a great week of shows coming up next week. Again, I encourage you folks, if you're listening to this show, there's two things I need from you. One, please visit our sponsors. Microdose. Microdose.com has a 30% off special right now if you use that code DARKNESS at checkout. Microdose.com. Check them out, please. The product, I stand behind this product, folks, because it is getting me out of pain. I'm telling you, I sat down again this week with my pain doctor. Folks, pain doctors aren't really doing everything they can to help. And it's because they're being handcuffed by a lot of different agencies. They're not really in it anymore to help you. You've got to help yourself. This is one way to help yourself. Microdose.com, 30% off at checkout, code word darkness. We have another sponsor coming on next week, Miracle Made, Miracle Sheets. I use these sheets, and I'm telling you, they're amazing. I'm going to tell you more about them next week. We'll have a link to them in the sponsor section of darknessradioshow.com. I want you to check them out ahead of time so you can get an idea of these sheets. But they're antibacterial sheets, and they're amazing. They are some good sheets, and boy, they're comfortable too. Miracle Sheets. You'll hear more about them next week. The other thing I need from you, the other favor I need from you, I know you like to binge these shows. I get it. I like to binge shows too, but try not to hold on to them for any more than a couple of weeks. And the reason being is not only does it help our sponsors out, but it helps us out as well on this program. It's hard to explain rating systems. It's hard to explain how this whole funny podcast thing works. But we really don't get credit with our advertisers. We really don't get credit as far as downloads go for this show if you're holding on to them for more than a couple of weeks. It doesn't do anything for us. So if you can, try to, as you get them in your queue, listen to them and give us credit for these shows. It would be great. We'd be grateful for it. We'd be grateful to you if you can listen to them as you get them. But hey, if you need to hold on to them for a little while and want to listen to them in a block, that's fine. Just don't make it too big of a block. That's all we ask. Again, we're grateful to you for listening to these shows. We love you. You're our family. We love you for listening to the show. We appreciate you. We thank you for taking your hard-earned time to listen to Darkness Radio. For Beer City Bruiser, for Jess, for Mally, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for being part of our family. We look forward to giving you more true crime, more of the best in paranormal programming right here next week on Darkness Radio.